Yeah. No front number. Yeah. Yeah. Unashamed, unafraid. I'm trying to walk the walk. Truth on the mic, no shame here, just real talk. Came from the outside, never fit in. Now we tell the story and the healing begins. No front, no mask, just telling the truth. Keep it real, keep it raw, speaking straight from the booth. If you feeling like an outsider, this one's for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Unashamed Unafraid. Unashamed of sexual addiction recovery and unafraid of coming unto Christ for healing. This is the podcast where we tell stories. We have experts come on. We do live unashamed episodes. Today we have kind of a special pair of guests. Normally we bring people on who are a little older, maybe 30s, 40s, 50s, I've noticed is kind of the trend. And I'm 26, so I get a little lonely. And today we're breaking that chain. Woohoo! We've got Madi and Doug. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Great.
Finally, some people my age.
Maddie, why do you look so nervous? You're like all scared. You do this all the time.
I don't know. It's weird when I'm on the other side.
It's nice to have people my age. I feel so comfortable.
Happy to be your peers.
So tell us about why the two of you are here in the organization that you're affiliated with.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're both here today representing the Unalone Club, which is a BYU organization. We are a club that's focused on helping particularly students at BYU who struggle with pornography or people who struggle with things adjacent to it. So if you're somebody who supports someone who struggles with pornography, or if you struggle with other issues adjacent to pornography, it's a place for you. And honestly, just a place for anyone who could come and want somewhere to not feel ashamed of who they are and maybe certain habits that they have.
Man, we like feeling unashamed.
Yes, that is the goal.
Maddie, do you have anything to add to that?
It's just, in my unbiased opinion, probably the best club on BYU campus.
Like, yeah.
All.
So something we wanted to mention, Maddie, you've been on this podcast before, episode 81.
81. We just learned.
Yes, we just learned of that. Chris has a photographic
Yeah.
memory of prodigious proportions. Not just kidding. He looked it up beforehand. But so you've told your story. You're maybe not going to share as many details because if people want to go back and learn about you, they can go back to episode 81 and they can hear about what your story has been and
And
get
grab
in touch
some
with that.
tissues because it's awesome. It is so good.
It's a real tearjerker.
It's brutal.
But the two of you are here together because you're involved now in that club together. And just as kind of a point of reference back to that, you also actively lead the Sisters on the Frontier podcast.
Mm-hmm. Front lines.
Sisters
on the front lines.
Did I say Frontier?
Yeah. But like,
The
it's
Sisters
okay.
on
We're
the
like,
Frontier.
we're going out on the,
The
frontier
pioneers.
too, I guess.
Trek podcast.
Sisters on the Front Lines. I
yeah.
love that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so the podcast is still going.
Right.
Well, tell us about that podcast. What is that podcast?
Yeah, so I started that podcast back in 2023, and I started it just in an effort to help young girls who were struggling with pornography. Because I mean, obviously, episode 81, have struggled with pornography.
Yep.
And I felt like that was just a group of people that didn't get really any recognition, and there's kind of an extra layer of shame with struggling with that as a woman. So I started that podcast in an effort to help those young women. So I have like different kinds of episodes. I have professionals come on and share their insights, and then I have girls come on and share their stories, and I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How difficult is it to get women to come on and share their stories?
It's mainly just been people that either I know personally or have maybe found like my Instagram.
Right.
But most of the time it's like me reaching out to them. Like I've only had a few where it's them reaching out to share their story.
So if you are a woman who struggles with pornography or has struggled with pornography, reach out to Maddie because it is awesome. And you need to get on there because it's your story will touch the hearts of people that just need to hear your story.
Mm-hmm. And we need more women sharing their stories.
Because the enemy does not care whether you are male or female, and women are addicted to pornography as well.
Mhm.
and it's rampant, and it's obviously that's why we're doing what we're doing with creating this movement,
Mhm.
right? So love that you're doing that. So you started the podcast, and then you left for 2 years or for 18 months to go serve an LDS mission. And where did you go?
I went to the Singapore mission, but it was Singapore and Malaysia. I only spent like 3 months in actual Singapore, and the rest were biking around in the boonies of Malaysia. It was awesome.
Love it. And then but it still kept going while you were gone.
Yeah, for the most part. It was definitely slower, but I put 3 girls, including my sister, in charge of it while I was gone. And I had just, that summer before, I had just stocked up a bunch of episodes, which, sad story, they deleted while I was on my mission.
Ooh.
But
Whoops.
but I'm over it. But yeah, so then I had the opportunity actually on my mission to record 1 episode. They like gave me permission. So
cool.
while I was biking around one day, I was just thinking about like what topic would be the most applicable if I have one topic in 18 months, and I just thought of grace, and what better person to talk about grace than Brad Wilcox. And so I ended up reaching out just through like random connections, but ended up being able to record a podcast with him from like across the world, and it was so cool.
That's so cool.
It was such a cool
That's
opportunity. But anyway, yeah, we're getting back into things finally since being home. So it's
Love
exciting
that.
stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Unalone Club. Doug, I'm assuming that you have some level of personal connection to the message and to kind of the purpose of the Unalone Club. Do you want to tell us your story, man?
Yeah, I would love to. So I, throughout most of my life, since I was about 8 years old, to some degree or another, and off and on at times, have struggled with pornography. It's something I stumbled into when I was very young. I didn't really understand it, what it was, why it was bad. And so I just kind of went with it. And
You said very young.
Yeah, about 8 years old.
Okay, 8. Well, that's young.
Yeah, 8 years old. I was quite young. And so by the time I realized it was not something I wanted in my life, I had already been struggling with it for several years. And it took a really long time. I don't think I ever opened up to anyone about it until I was 15 or 16, at which point I opened up to my dad about it. And it was tough. I experienced a lot of shame throughout most of my youth, and was just terrified of having people know this about me. And anyways, continuing on, I did pretty well with it leading up to my mission when I went at 18.
Where'd you go?
I went, so I served in a couple of missions. I was called to the Ukraine, Kiev, Moldova mission, and then COVID hit, and I was reassigned to the Washington, Everett mission for about 9 months, and then finally made it back over there, and the war started in Ukraine, and we were evacuated. So I went back to Washington.
Wow.
So I moved around a
Sweet.
little bit.
You can connect with your people up in Washington because
Yeah.
we're having our Warrior Heart Men's Retreat up in
Perfect.
Washington in March, and you can come to that one.
Wonderful. Yeah,
Where in
it gave me an
Washington
excuse
is
to
that
come
at?
visit.
It's in Yakima,
Oh,
Yakima.
perfect.
or
Yeah.
just outside of
Just
Yakima.
on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was up in the tip-top corner up in Everett, but it was a beautiful place. But yeah, so I did really well. I didn't struggle at all with it on my mission, and got home, and about 3 months after I got home, slipped right back into it, and was super embarrassed and ashamed of it. But it was about that time that I really started putting in a lot of the studying and the research into how can I get over this. Before then, I had just counseled with my bishop, and he had given me the classic, like, plug your phone in the kitchen and don't do this and don't do that, and it didn't work. But then, after my mission, I started studying it more. I started getting into a lot of things like mindfulness, and just started going to therapy, which is great, and undoing a lot of the shameful thought patterns that I had, and a lot of the bad habits I had developed. And it got to the point where I still struggled with it most weeks and most days even, but I was feeling a lot better with myself. The recovery it wasn't very obvious to people outside, because people outside look and say, oh, you're still slipping up like 3 times a week. Like, you're not making any progress. But my internal view on the matter had shifted immensely. And I say that I was making leaps and bounds every single week just because of how I felt about myself. And the fact that I didn't hate myself anymore,
Yeah.
which was amazing.
Can you walk us through, as a child and a teenager, what were the things that led you to start hating yourself?
Yeah, it was just, a lot of it came from growing up, I think the first time I'd ever heard it was a bad thing was maybe from my mom or my dad. And as a kid, I hated upsetting my parents. And so I heard them talking poorly about this habit that I had, and they didn't know I had it. And I was like, oh no. Like, if they knew that I struggled with this, they would be really upset with me.
What did they say?
My dad was like, "Oh yeah, sounds pretty normal to me that you're struggling with this." that's what most.
Well, no,
people...
I'm curious.
Oh,
what did you overhear them saying that caused you some shame?
Yeah, well, so I had
that's a tough that's a bad parenting moment.
Yeah, no, it was to their credit, they weren't trying to say anything. I think they just didn't understand the issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we had known somebody who had struggled with pornography, and they had had a disastrous marriage. They had turned out to be pretty abusive, and so the way that my parents looked at that was like, oh, pornography makes people abusers. And I think that was just kind of the logic that my brain picked up, was like, oh, pornography makes you an abuser. Obviously not true, but my 10-year-old mind was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
Is that an identity you picked up then?
I think I had it at one point. That's something that I've undone at some point. But I did for a long time, and even up until after my mission, I always have had fears that my struggles would turn me into a bad person. Even though I didn't feel like a bad person. Well, I did, but it wasn't like
now it's going to be known that I'm a bad person.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I'm going to turn into somebody that once I get married, I'm going to beat my spouse, or any manner of things, which have not come true, but
right.
And won't come true. But
awesome. So you are actually married now.
I am.
Not to Maddie.
Not to
Maddie.
Maddie.
We want to make that very clear. You guys are just students, because we always have
students
couples
and
on here,
friends.
right? So I want to make sure that we're clear.
Well
but you
done,
guys are
Chris.
just students at BYU, going there, and that's why you guys are doing what you're doing, and being able to share the message. So your wife is at home hanging out somewhere else right now.
Yep.
And so did she? You guys start dating? Did you talk to her about where you're at and what your addiction was? And
yeah, so I remember our first date that we went out. We were rock climbing. On our way back home, she asked me about the different activities I like to do, and I was like, "Oh, I actually help run."
I like to look at porn.
Yeah, exactly. I like to look at porn.
Casually,
funny you ask.
That's my casual recreational activities.
Can you imagine?
That would have been a very untactful way to approach that conversation.
That was not the story. I'm just making that up, guys.
Yeah, that's not how it went. No, what happened was we were driving home from that date, and she asked me what I wanted to do. I said, oh, I help run 2 clubs at BYU. I actually run another club for people with OCD, which is something else I can get into if you want me to. And she's like, what's the other one? Oh, it's a group for people who struggle with pornography. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. And I could tell she was a little uncomfortable with that. And
dude, living unashamed, man. That's awesome right there.
Yeah, and I didn't explicitly say, oh yeah, I struggle with pornography, but I did allude to the fact that this is something I'm aware of and that I work to overcome. I was kind of testing the waters a little bit to see how she would adjust to that revelation that this is
I would
an area.
bet she probably knew if you were running it that you struggled with it.
Definitely.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, no, she went home after that and called her dad and was like, hey, I'm worried that this guy that I just went on a date with struggles, and he's a former bishop. He's a great guy, father-in-law, and they talked about it, and yeah, she came off with a very great perspective on it, and
awesome.
Yeah. So then we've had other conversations about it throughout the time that we dated. We discussed it. I'd bring it up in pieces. It was never like a let's sit down and have this massive talk, because I think that would have freaked both of us out. We're both anxious people. But just over time, I've let her ask questions. I've told her a bit about my story and ways that I've struggled, ways that I cope with it, and that was really helpful. And we came up with a game plan pretty early on into dating on how we wanted to approach it. And something we decided was that, and this sounds bad, but I didn't want her to be my accountability partner.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
that's so perfect.
Good. I'm glad that's got an understanding. But I was like, I don't want that to be a central part of our relationship. And we talked about it, and there's more to our relationship than just the struggles we have. And that was really important. And the fact that she was so game to go with that, and that we could talk about it and didn't have to feel like it was this dark pit in our relationship was wonderful. And that to me was one of the things I was like, I love this girl. She's awesome.
Love that, man.
Yeah, and I mean, since we've been married, I've done really well. I haven't had any struggles. I'm not naive in assuming that I'll never struggle, but I've been doing wonderfully since we've been married. And I remember I was laying in bed with her a couple nights ago, and we were just talking, and I was telling her, I was like, hey, this is the longest I've ever gone without struggling with pornography, and at least in recent years. And she was like, that's awesome. And you know what? Even if you'd slipped up and if you told me, it's a great chance for me to love you more. And I was like, thank you. This is
Dude, that
perfect.
is super cool.
She's the most perfect woman ever.
Somebody taught her well.
Yeah. I don't know who it was. If it was her dad or her. I remember
That's really
initially,
cool.
yeah, she hadn't had much exposure to the idea of pornography, and especially not in somebody that she dated. And so she didn't really have any opinions that she'd formed about it. And so when she went and talked to her dad, he gave her some really good advice. And as she talked with me about it, and I was able to share my perspective as somebody who struggled with it for most of my life, that was really helpful as well, I think.
Yeah.
Doug, in your recovery, how has this idea of some of those harder things being an opportunity for someone to love you even better, how has that been a theme in your recovery? How has that helped you to get where you're at right now?
It's been crucial, because I think one of the reasons I was so afraid of telling my story to people was that if I told them, they wouldn't love me, I guess was the sort of mental game I was playing in my head. And just having somebody that's decided, yes, like, I love you even if you struggle. And if you struggle, I
still choose you.
Yeah, I still choose you even if you struggle. And that to me was the most just affirming and weight off my shoulder that it could have possibly been. It was wonderful.
Beautiful. So did you start the Unalone Club?
No, I didn't. So
Okay,
it actually.
how did you get involved in that? And then we'll come back to you, Maddie, like how you got back, when you got back, how you got involved.
Yeah.
So
it was actually started during COVID, I think, by Emmy Bass. She's wonderful. She's fantastic. She's worked with Relay Recovery, I know, since she's been graduated. But I first showed up to the club, I think about 2 years ago, and I've just been coming ever since. And as I've been to those club meetings, I have found it extremely healing and therapeutic to have a place that I can talk about my struggles and be comfortable with these people, because they all know what's going on in your head. There's not like a disconnect between their understanding of pornography and my understanding as somebody who's lived with it. It's a lot of people who understand it, and in a place where we feel comfortable talking about it. And so I loved that. For me, that was one of the most healing things. Like, if I hadn't been in this club and had times where I've been sitting at a table in the middle of the Wilkinson Center passing out flyers and saying, hey, do you struggle with porn? Come here. If you don't, your friends do. Come and join our club. Come and talk about it.
I definitely think they do. You're lying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, can we just, there's so much there. There's so much there.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about that? What was that like for you the very first time? Because I've thought about that before. I'm like, man, because I work at BYU right now, right? And I'm like, boy, I'm still like, I feel like a little bit too close to the age of everybody who goes to that, where there's some fear that comes.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what your experience was like as you started to step into that, being so unashamed about it. That's like huge, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I wish I knew when the moment was where that shifted, because if you'd asked me to do this 5 years ago, I would have crawled under a desk and cried probably. There's no way I would have shared that. But I don't know what's led me to that. But I know starting that process and actually putting myself out there and being comfortable sharing this and saying, hey, I'm somebody who struggles. The thing that's given me strength to do that is realizing that I wish I had been able to see people doing that when I was in my deepest points of struggle. And that's given me the courage to do it, in the hopes that there's somebody walking by that's thinking that they hate themselves because of their struggle with something that they shouldn't struggle with according to someone's moral standard. And I want them to know that there are other people like them. And that's what Unalone Club is all about, is knowing that you are not alone in your struggles.
Unashamed, Unafraid, and Unalone. I love it.
Should add it to the title.
I know we should.
Heck yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the club as far as meetings and the ways that you help other college students at BYU feel unalone in this struggle.
Absolutely. So the way that we run the club is kind of like a lecture series. we have kind of four main types of meetings. We used to just meet over Zoom, and we just have guest speakers. We've actually had Chris visit the club and speak to us, and you. But we'll invite guests, we'll invite researchers, advocates, people who have experience in the field of dealing with pornography or other unwanted sexual behaviors. And we'll invite them to come and share their expertise, share their insights and their wisdom. We'll also have social activities just to build bonds with the people in the club so that they know there's friends to be found in the club. We'll have resource nights where we'll just talk about different resources that are out there, podcasts, books, other useful things that people can go look to if they want more. Yeah, and just we have lots of variety of activities, but the main one we do is guest speakers that come and speak. And we have some approaches that we kind of espouse in our club. Not all guests are created equal, and especially in the field of pornography where there's a lot of misunderstanding around how it works and just a lot of stigma. But we approach the issue of pornography as something called ego dystonic, which is a term that I stole from my experiences with OCD. But ego dystonic is basically, it's something that you do that is against your values, and even though you don't want to do it, you do it anyway.
I've actually never heard that term, ego dystonic.
Ego dystonic, yeah, it's out of tune with your ego.
See,
I
you
guess.
do learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun word. Go and put it in your lexicon. Anyways, yeah. But we, when we're in the club, we often let the individual members decide whether they want to use the word addiction to talk about their pornography struggles. And the reason for that is because for some people it's a very empowering title, and for others it can feel very disabling.
Shaming and
Yeah,
stuff
very
too.
shaming and difficult. And so we leave that up to them how they want to decide to use that term. But we approach it in a lot of different ways. We've had people from 12 Steps come and talk. We've had people come and talk about mindfulness, about developing healthy attitudes around sexuality. We have a lot of religion teachers come and talk about different religious perspectives on pornography. And just this last week, we had a bishop come and talk about the ecclesiastical process of what it's like. And the idea is that we're just shedding light on all the information that's out there and letting people come pick and choose what information they want to try to put into their recovery journey, and hopefully it helps.
Have you guys had Rob Farrell on yet?
Not since I've been in. I don't
So
know
we
if
need
they
to
had
get.
before.
I'll hook you up with Rob Farrell
Please do.
and Kurt Franklin at Leading Saints.
We have had an event
thought you had
approved for
Kurt.
Kurt Franklin for a while. I don't know if he ever actually came.
I mean,
I think-
both of them have been teaching at BYU Education Week and everything too, but
Yeah.
which I just applied for. So for
perfect.
next
Really?
year, so that'd be
So
awesome
excited.
if I am able to do that.
Awesome.
But yeah, those guys would be awesome to have.
Oh, we'd
for you
love
guys
to
as
have
well.
him. Yeah, we'd absolutely love to have him.
Perfect.
So, can you tell us? I'd love to know, as you've been having guest speakers come in and talk to your club about different topics of sexuality and addiction and pornography and unwanted use, things like that. What are some things that stick out to you or have stuck out to the members of your group as being particularly helpful in this kind of a battle?
Yeah. The main one, I think that hopefully, and the goal of the club is that people get out of this a sense of community, and that it frees them from isolation. Because anyone who's struggled with unwanted sexual behavior knows that isolation is the bane of your existence. That's what it leads to struggle. It leads you to staying in struggle, and it leads you to hating yourself and your struggles. And so that's the main thing that I hope people get. And we have a lot of talk about connection and different kinds of connection and how to cultivate those types of connection. Other messages that I personally found helpful in that we've had a lot of people have said are helpful are talks where they speak about pornography less as the main problem to confront and rather a symptom of other problems. Because for a lot of people, pornography is a symptom of something underlying. Maybe they're struggling with depression or other unwanted emotions, and maybe this is how they've learned to cope. And so that's really helpful too. And any message that we can get, there's something to learn from. And so those have been some of my favorite aspects of the club, and that I hope people are getting out of it.
Why do you think that particular message resonates with young adults so much, that pornography is a symptom of a different problem?
I think a lot of it comes from, and this is just my personal view, I don't know if there's anything to back this up, but especially at BYU, we approach pornography because we look at it from a lens of transgression, from a lens of pornography as sin. And as religious people, as Christians, it is our duty to confront sin and change and to turn away from sin. And so we put a ton of focus on the pornography. And I think sometimes that leads us to forget about things outside of pornography, the other things that we need to be doing to help reinforce our efforts to overcome pornography. So things like focusing on service, on being healthy, going on hikes and eating well, surrounding yourself with good people. A lot of those can fall to the wayside when your only focus is, I need to conquer this, I need to overcome this. Until I conquer this, I can't move on in my life.
Dude, that's a fascinating perspective, because if you think about it, I've thought about this a lot. Is the real sin porn or masturbation, or is the real sin something deeper than that happens just before? It's like, yeah, like we know that there's pain, we know that there's porn is manifesting something else that's going on, right? But I almost wonder if the way that God sees it, and I don't know, I'll ask him someday.
Can I add on to that a little bit?
Yeah.
I recorded a podcast with Richard Ostler a while ago. It's not out yet, but there was just this little snippet of where he was talking about that. And he said that, like, Satan doesn't win with the pornography. He wins when we separate ourselves from the love of God.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe it's like you go back to Adam and Eve, right? Was the real sin that they partook of the forbidden fruit, or was what they came to believe about God right after that, when they immediately went and hid, right? Because I think kind of in that thinking is suddenly a misunderstanding of God, that he's someone who is punishing and that they are now unlovable. All right, there's some identity stuff.
The enemy told them that they were
Exactly.
bad.
Right. And so, yeah, I
You
mean,
need to hide.
I wrestle with that a lot, but just some thoughts there. Do you have anything to add to that, Doug?
No, I agree. This is kind of a perspective that I've begrudgingly moved towards, because I remember I was talking to a therapist about this. The first time he said, why are you actually afraid to look at porn? Like, what's the problem there? And I was like, it creates problems in your relationships. It destroys your self-esteem and all these other things. And he's like, do you think the problem maybe isn't the porn, but what's leading you to the porn? And I was like, nah, that can't be. But then the more I thought about it, the more I think I agree with him. And the more that I've thrown my efforts into addressing underlying things,
Right.
Yeah.
it's become so much easier to address the pornography.
Right.
And as I've worked to improve other areas in my life and improve how I view myself, it's like someone used a metaphor that I think it was Cameron Staley in one of his TED Talks. He says, depression or anxiety or whatever it is the cold, and pornography is the cough. It's a symptom of the cold.
Wow.
And the more that I think about it that way, the easier it is for me to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that a lot of the time. I think at the end of the day, I mean, it's probably both, right? Because there's people in their lives who don't react the same way to the pain in their life that I do. And it's probably a little less destructive for them, truthfully. But underneath, I'm hoping, and I believe this is the case, that God, deep down, really what he just wants is our heart. And so all of these, these kind of whack-a-mole symptoms, they stop popping back up when you solve the real issue, which is underneath, and that is a full yielding of your heart to God, and a new identity and increased ability to emotionally cope and be honest. And so
Yeah,
anyways,
and
fun
that's-
tangent. Thanks for entertaining that.
Yeah,
But
totally. Yeah, and that's
I love
that's just the last thing. That's the end goal of all the commandments, right?
Yeah.
Is to change your heart.
Yeah.
So
other themes that seem to be particularly helpful or resonate with people in your club.
the motto of our club that we've kind of adopted from a TED Talk is that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is connection.
Mm-hmm.
Johan Hari.
Yep, Johan Hari. That's where it comes. And that has been, I think, amazing for a lot of the members of our club. And we've had a lot of people come and talk about connection and the different ways that we can find connection and how that can help us to overcome pornography or other unwanted behaviors. So that's a huge one.
Yeah. That sense of community.
So Maddie, you get home off your mission, And what have you done to stay in connection, to still keep going, just drop into this again? Well, not even again, because you weren't part of this before you left on your mission, right?
I was.
Oh, you
yeah.
were?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sweet. So you're just jumping right back in. You're like,
Just
"Here we
jumping
go.
back in.
I know this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
Why was that critical, though? Because, I mean, if you jumped right back in, I'm sure that you saw something there that you needed back in your life.
Oh, yeah. I probably thought about, like, going back to these things, like, every day of my mission. Like, not to be trunky, but, like, I feel like I was trunky for a good thing. But I just got really excited because, like, I feel like I have such a passion for this, and I love the Unalone Club. And before my mission, the meetings were only on Zoom, which was nice because people were, like, able to remain anonymous and just join whenever from wherever. But now we have our meetings in person, and it is the coolest thing ever.
There's so much more connection, right?
There's so much more connection, and you just like during the first couple meetings, it would just be like halfway through a meeting, the presenter's not even presenting about something like emotional. I'm like, why am I crying? Like, it's just so powerful, like being in a room full of those people, because I say this to Douglas all the time, but like the people that are in that room, I think sometimes think that they're in that room because they're the only ones on BYU campus that are struggling with pornography. The truth is,
they're not alone.
yeah, the truth is that the majority of people are struggling, but they're the only ones that have the courage to show up to a meeting and do something about it.
Love that.
And
right?
so I just love the crap out of those people. So yeah, I got right back into
that
it.
when I was guest with you guys when I was online, I'm like, I feel so bad for these people that are not willing to show their face.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, guys, if you just knew, if you can just talk about this stuff and like just show up in it and be like, you know what? Yeah, this is something I struggle with, and I am refusing to do this alone. Because we have to have connection. We have to have community. The community is what keeps us going. We can't do this alone. God didn't create us to do this whole life alone. And so why would this be any different? One of the biggest struggles that anybody struggles with, oh yeah, hey, why don't you do that alone but nothing else? No, we got to have that togetherness and know that. I mean, I remember walking in my very first recovery group. I was scared to death because I'm like, who am I going to see? And it's this recovery program, and I'm like, I know there's going to be like 2 or 3 other couples in there, you know. Walk in, and there's 36 people in there. And I'm like, I'm not alone. This is so much bigger than me. That was the very first time in my life that I had never felt alone. And it was just so awesome for me.
You want to know one of the first times that I felt unalone in my whole life?
Yeah.
I walked into a youth teen pilot 12-step group at Riverton High School in Riverton, Utah, and you were the facilitator, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gives me we talk about this all the time.
We've probably brought this up like 100 times on the podcast already.
It always
It's
gets
such a
brings
full
up tears
circle,
for me, man.
legendary moment.
It's super cool, man.
Yeah, but the community matters, right? I remember you saying like, yeah, I never ride alone with another woman, and here are all the boundaries that I have set around my life, and here's how my healing has been. And I've been clean for 8 years. And I was like, my gosh, this is actually possible, and there's other people doing it, and I'm not alone. It was just such a powerful moment. Really cool what you guys are saying too. Our video guy, he's not here today actually, he's in Hawaii, but Mason, he's one of my best friends now. The reason why he's with Unashamed now is because he was on some sort of religious class. I don't know if it was Institute but he was on a Zoom call. And they were zooming in and they were having a lesson about sexuality and pornography. And that teacher had invited Stephen Shields to come talk about being unashamed and recovering from pornography addiction. And he said every single person in that Zoom call had their cameras off. And Steve in typical Steve fashion got on and he's like, hey, look, if you really want to recover from porn, turn your camera on right now.
Oh my gosh.
that is so Steve.
And,
Love it.
and then Mason did. And then he talked to Steve after. And now he's my best friend. And he does our video work. And I call him like every week. And we talk about, I mean, he's just like, It's just crazy the power of community, what that opens up. When you can finally talk to someone who gets it and accepts you for who you are and knows the struggle.
Yeah.
That's when things start to change.
Yeah. Literally yesterday I was talking to this girl that I know, and she's just saying that she finally decided to like be open with people about it. And they're like, well, where are you going every Tuesday night at 7:30? She's like, well, I'm going to this club at BYU that's to help people who are struggling with pornography. And she's like, I have been blown away because almost every single person that I've said that to says, oh my gosh, I struggle with that too. And that's just what happens every single time when you decide to be open. You're just stunned at like the amount of people that say, well, me too.
Yeah.
Wow.
So cool. So did BYU start this, or did another student start it and was like, hey, BYU, you want to get back behind this? Or like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so it was started by a student, Emmy Bass. She's awesome. But she had a boyfriend who was struggling at the time with pornography, and she's looking around for resources, and she's like, wait, there's nothing on campus. Like there's these recovery groups that meet in the basement of the Wilkes Center.
It's always in the basement.
It's always in the basement, in a place no one wants to go.
Hide.
Shove them down there.
I know, hide them.
Turn the
They got
lights
problems.
off.
Yeah, we still meet in a basement, but it's a better basement. It's a nicer basement. It's just the only room available. Anyways, but it started by a student. She approached a professor, because to start a club at BYU, you needed, at the time, an advisor, a professor that would kind of help run the show. So she approached Dr. Casey Griffiths, who's amazing. He's a church history teacher at BYU. And she said, hey, let's start this club. And I think at the beginning, BYU was kind of like, okay, like, we'll try this. This is an interesting idea for a club, but it's been nothing but good since its inception. Yeah, and we've, as you know, BYUSI, the program or the entity behind the clubs has changed a little bit, but we've still been able to keep it up, and it's student-led. We don't really run into problems of, administration trying to poke around, other than on social media, but we'll. That's another.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, well, that's another.
We could do
story.
another podcast episode. but-
Right.
Yeah.
We've had conversations about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one more question before we get that Josh just sent in. He said,
So you'd mentioned that some guests were not as good as others.
Mhm.
And there's some misunderstandings about pornography addiction.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the dangerous misunderstandings that are in the world about pornography and recovery?
I think some of the ones that have been less valuable, because again, there's something you can learn from everyone, but the ones that are least valuable are the ones that do approach it shamefully. Obviously, I mean, most guests don't come in and say, oh, you struggle with pornography, you should be ashamed of yourself. But some guests are afraid to talk about it, or they talk about it in very uncomfortable ways that it's like, this is not helping us to feel
You're like,
unashamed.
I can tell you're uncomfortable talking
Yeah,
about
it's like,
this
if you're
thing.
uncomfy, anything we feel. And then also, and this is nothing against bishops, but bishops tend to be some of our worst guests, not because they're it's just because the nature of being a bishop is you are a normal dude and you are being asked to help, hundreds of young adults and youth tackle an issue that most therapists sometimes struggle to tackle.
yeah,
And so it's nothing on bishop's part. It's just that we're inviting a normal dude in.
right.
Right.
So it's like if you were to just send, I don't know, my older brother or something to come and talk about it and without any context. And so those are difficult. In the club, we prefer to find guests that are well-versed and have research to back up what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously at BYU, it's a institution of education, and so research is important. And so we get a lot of professors who do really well, who have studied these phenomenon and who have done work to see what's effective and what isn't. And the best ones are just the guests that come in and let the people in the room know that they are loved and that they're not alone in their struggle, even if they don't have all the experience in the world with handling it. It's how they approach the club and the face that they put forward. Is it one of being ashamed or one of being full of love?
Awesome.
As simple as that is, that seems to be critical.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, as we're wrapping up, what would you say, just from a kind of a bird's eye view or a broader view, What is it that you would leave with young adults or people our age who are trying to find resources that they should look for as they're in this journey to get the right help?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of bad resources, ones that aren't as well informed or that maybe have unhealthy views on pornography, but there are a lot of good ones. This podcast is a great one. Maddie's podcast is awesome. There's a lot of great research out there. People like Dr. Dean Busby, Shalom Levitt, Tammy Hill. She's awesome. Look for good sources. And if you are in our age group and you're struggling with pornography, you are not alone. You are far from it. I bet you can throw a stone across the courtyard at BYU and not hit 5 or 10 people that are struggling on the way.
Right.
And come and join the club. Find somebody, even if it's not our club, find a group of people that you can talk to and be open with. It doesn't even have to be with the goal of getting better. Just find somebody that you can open up to.
If you need to,
create
a club where you're at.
Yeah, one of our club members is moving up to Idaho soon to go to BYU, Idaho. He's like, I'm going to open a chapter there. I'm like, yes, spread the word.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. So can anybody, you don't have to be a BYU student to go and attend that, or do you have to be?
Yeah, unfortunately, you technically have to be a BYU student to attend. I'll never turn anyone away.
So they're not checking BYU
BYU
IDs.
Student Associations is listening to this podcast right now.
We
No, you
don't
do.
invite
Like, yes,
anyone.
you do have to be a BYU student. If they are not, no, you do not.
But I don't always ask the guests where they're from.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're
Totally.
not sitting there taking BYU IDs from
Yeah.
people to make sure. Yeah.
No, just show up.
So this is a community. This is a relatively community resource that people in the Provo-Orem area can access.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is. And we have an Instagram, we have a link tree with past recordings of different meetings that we've had and other resources you can access to.
Right on.
Can I just add in one last thing
Go
that
ahead.
I would say
Absolutely.
to young adults? This just came to mind yesterday in our club meeting. We had the bishop of one of our club officers, come and present. And towards the end of his presentation, he was saying that that club officer had texted the bishop and been like, hey, I'd love to just put a little poster thing in like our ward chat or whatever about this club because I think it could help people. And the bishop responded is like, yeah, like that's fine, but like, are you sure? Like people are kind of gonna know, you know? And his response was so good. He's like, oh, well, I know who I am. I'm pretty confident in who I am. I just made a mistake. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Heck yeah.
His name is Bowen. He's got the coolest mustache ever. You're gonna have to come to the club to meet him.
Wow.
But
Wow.
but he's awesome. But I just think that's pretty cool. So that would be the message that I would leave with young adults is that you know who you are. You're a child of God. You just made a mistake.
Love
Awesome.
it. Maddie, Doug, thanks for coming on today. Guys, if you're out there in podcast land listening to this and this was helpful to you and you know someone else it would be helpful to, send it to them. Share this message. Get other people out of shame as you find community and build your recovery. Get access to our bonus content and become an outsider on unashamedunafraid.com. You can find us on social media at unashamedunafraid. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are trying to build that right now, and we have some great quality content, as well as if you are a
You can
scroll.
hang out and see our faces.
Yeah. If you are a scroller on YouTube, which I admittedly am, and I'm working on that, go to our page so you can at least get some good content from Unashamed Unafraid pumping through your feed, because that does make a difference. In fact, when I see stuff from our YouTube page pull up, I usually hop off YouTube and go do something better with
It's a
my life.
reminder. Oh man, I'm
Yeah.
wasting time here.
So, anyways, thanks again for being on, guys. Until next time, continue to live unashamed.